Welcome, my dear guests, to the captivating expanses of my story. Chapter 9. The sun was rising over the glittering towers of the capital when Rita Griffin entered the laboratory. There was already a lot of movement in the corridors because the researchers were working fervently on their current projects. Rita smiled satisfied. She loved this atmosphere of progress and innovation. On that memorable day, an experiment of extraordinary significance was ahead of us, the trial of the groundbreaking metacognitive belief technology that the team has been working tirelessly on for months. Filled with unlimited confidence, Rita was firmly convinced that this breakthrough would soon bear its desired fruits. With an energetic voice, she exclaimed a warm "Good morning, everybody," as she entered the main room majestically. Immediately she was greeted by an exciting rumbling, which sounded like an orchestra of anticipation. "Let's start," she proclaimed with a determination that filled the room. "I demand that the first tests of the Chamber of Faith take place before my eyes today." While the enthusiastic researchers tirelessly pursued their work, Rita went deeper into studying the current simulation data. The theory, which she analyzed sharply, seemed to be solid. But now was the time to put the technology into practice. With persistent patience and a quiet hand, she adjusted the energy parameters and neural connections, as if she were an artist completing her masterpiece. Suddenly, a noble peep tone broke the silence, and a triumphant announcement of success appeared on the screen, shining like a star in the dark sky. "Look!" cried Hinata Takahashi, Rita's best friend. "It works. The subjects have the extraordinary ability to change their beliefs and views." A radiant smile adorned Rita's face. "Excellent!" she proclaimed with enthusiasm. "Let's get the tests on highways. This breakthrough discovery will open the doors to the Citadel of Faith." The weeks it was passed in feverish activity. And finally, the new Chamber of Faith was ready for its virgin journey into practice. With pride, Rita revealed the groundbreaking technology that was housed in the Senate of the Wise. "With passion," she said, "through these measures, we will shape and strengthen the spirit of our people. Religious belief and loyalty to the Empire will experience a dramatic boost." The Senate flooded in a wave of approval, its members cheered ecstatically. But while the others openly showed their enthusiasm, one could see some thoughtfulness in Hinata's deep eyes. A silent voice of reason, speaking to her amid the euphoric tumult. "Yes, it is undoubtedly a power inherent in us here," she whispered thoughtfully. We should not forget that such a power also has its shadow sides. The mind should be free from manipulation and coercion." Her words penetrated the room like a gentle wind blowing, which cooled the heated minds a little. Members of the Senate, who had previously debated in a wild mess, slowly silenced and listened attentively. Some nicked in agreement, while others remained skeptical. But the words of reason did not fail, leaving room for an essential debate on the ethical limits of this power. Nevertheless, Rita impatiently kicked her hand into the air. "You're always just looking for problems. Think of the unstoppable progress," she exclaimed. Hinata whispered, but she remained silent. She could understand Rita's enthusiasm, even though she was more careful and thoughtful. In the depths of her heart, she desperately hoped that everything would turn good. As Rita plunged into her next project, life in the kingdom continued. Governor Prakti Maghoun, a capable Numa, proved to be a cautious sector leader. He skillfully promoted trade and industry in the colonies, resulting in a remarkable boost in prosperity. With a wisdom that enlightened the spirit of the Senate, Prakti earned praise and recognition. His humility made him bow his head, while humbly declaring, "I serve the good of the kingdom." But deep within him lay a pride that could no longer be hidden. Finally, the moment had come when he could prove his extraordinary talent. Within the borders of the kingdom of Kasach, progress flourished at all corners. On the planet's core, Scapho-Ural, the Senate generously invested its resources in expanding laboratories and research centers. It was only a matter of time before this celestial body would rise to a beacon of scientific excellence and further increase the glory of the Empire. There was a sense of anticipation and zeal everywhere. But not all the news brought joy. In the vastness of the Shireen sector, a strange extraterrestrial force had appeared, simply calling themselves the Messengers of Fair, this theocratic empire being ruled by the avian species of the Uni. The Imperial Senate, through its agents, had to observe the envoys of Fair, for these aroused growing concern. Keisha's eyes narrowed as she uttered her evil warning. "These avians, my love, are expanding at an alarming rate. Soon, It could pose a huge threat to our empire. After endless discussions and profound considerations, the Senate made the difficult decision that the university could not be ignored. With a sense of urgency, preparations for the forthcoming conflict were immediately undertaken. Even the divine Empress Savia, who always acted with a heavy heart, could not resist the decision. She said, "If it is necessary, we will defend ourselves with a preventive strike. But we must be cautious." Amid the dark paths on which politics walked, research steadfastly paved its unstoppable path. Rita, a woman with ambitious dreams, had committed herself to a groundbreaking mission, to unlock zero-point energy, that mysterious source of infinite power. With shining eyes and a voice vibrating enthusiastically, she declared before the assembled Senate, "With this breakthrough, our power plants and spacecraft will catapult into a new era. Give me the resources I need to carry out this project." The Senate, surrounded by a mysterious aura, agreed without hesitation. However, while all the other members were enthusiastic, Hinata remained skeptical. Her eyes sparkled with fear and doubt as she expressed her concerns. "Can we gain control over such immense energies?" she warned quietly. "Or are we going to unleash an unstoppable force beyond our imagination?" But Rita impatiently rejected her. "You're afraid of progress, as always," she blasphemed. "We must not hesitate." Hinata Takahashi whispered and walked in. "I hope Rita doesn't go too far in her zeal." Rita devoted herself entirely to the search for zero-point energy. For days she was engaged in calculations and simulations and was tirelessly chasing for the difficult breakthrough. Sometimes she forgot even the basic needs for food and rest. Hinata's voice was full of concern as she spoke these words, and her eyes reflected a deep concern for her friend. "You put yourself under too much pressure," she warned, with a breath of urgency in her voice. "Take a moment to pause and breathe out before your health suffers irreparable damage." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth, as she begged her dear friend to give priority to self-care. But Rita wailed impatiently and rejected the thought. "No time for breaks. I am close to achieving my goal," she explained. Hinata whispered and gave in to her stubborn girlfriend. She knew Rita's determination too well. In the depths of Rita's determined mind, an unshakable perseverance knew no boundaries. Once she had set a goal in mind, there was no force in the world that could stop her. And so Nadine, the silent guard, took her position in the background and watched Rita's every step with a watchful eye, as she had done countless times before. While Rita continued to pursue her research with unwavering determination, preparations for the war in the Empire were on the rise. The battle-tested First Space Fleet, led by the steadfast Admiral Paulina Romero, broke into the Polaris system to launch the first strikes against the enormous Uni forces in the Shireen sector, beyond Polaris wormhole. Filled with a spirit of relentlessness, Paulina said goodbye to the Senate, filled with determination and a sense of duty. "Don't be afraid, for I will crush our enemies," she swore. Her spirit was flaming with the battle. The hall broke out in jubilation, but Savia's heart remained concerned. War was never a solution, only a necessary evil. Through the Polaris wormhole, the space fleet invaded the Shireen sector. They immediately found themselves in a fierce battle with an enemy space base near the Ols Flyly system. Paulina led her ships calmly and calculated into the space battle, but their resistance was extreme. After an epic battle that lasted countless hours, the brave fleet members finally managed to conquer the base. But the triumph was not without sacrifices because the space fleet had suffered heavy losses, and each crew had been exhausted. To give a spark of life to the tired minds, Paulina increasingly resorted to those performance-enhancing preparations that gave her the necessary energy. Soon, she became dependent on them but didn't seem to care about that. Their only goal was to continue to operate and steadfastly lead the space fleet. She couldn't afford to be weak, even though the relentless stress from within filled her. Your duty was all that counted. While Paulina fought unwavering determination, a heated debate was held in the Senate on how to proceed. After careful reflection and a long journey back and forth, it decided to invest in the ancient tradition of supremacy and the expansion of space fleet logistics. This strategic move would undoubtedly strengthen the power of their star fleets and enable them to enter the battle with even greater force. The Second Space Fleet, under the fearless leadership of Kate Brock, has not only been upgraded but also transformed to take part in the war. With a determination to seek equality, Brock pursued modernization with relentless energy. Their ambitious plan was to shape the Second Space Fleet into an unparalleled power throughout the galaxy. With an iron will and a strategic skill unique only to the true masters of her profession, she unstoppably paved the way to this noble goal. Amid the thunderstorm of war preparations, the research department reached a joyful message, which seemed like a glowing sight of light in the darkness. The majestic expedition ships, most notably the Ek Armstrong, had made a breakthrough discovery on a distant and unexplored planet. In an underground chamber's dark, hidden depths, the fearless researchers discovered a mythical cube of immense mystery, the Rubricator. When the customer came to Rita Griffin from this finding, she felt overwhelming joy, which she almost caught out of the fishing. "Behold," she cried with a respectful voice, "this is a replicator, a miracle weapon. With his power, we can eradicate any shortage of resources and materials. Just imagine the boundless potential that lies in it." With extreme caution, the Rubricator, a mysterious artifact of immeasurable value, was brought to Kasach and locked in the depths of a high-security laboratory. Under the fearless leadership of Rita, a brilliant scientist with an insatiable thirst for knowledge, attempts to decipher the deep hidden secrets of this mysterious object began. In a rush of boundless enthusiasm, she proclaimed with a voice full of conviction, "We will soon hold power in our hands." Hinata listened silently as an unpleasant feeling spread in her chest. She knew just too well how easily such a power could be abused. But as so often, Rita ignored her concerns. Hinata could only hope and pray ardently that everything would go well. Rita put all her energy into researching the Rubricator. Day and night, she walked into the lab, consumed by an insatiable thirst for knowledge. She often neglected the most basic human needs in her relentless quest for knowledge. She occasionally forgot to feed herself amid the flood of calculations and rigorous analyses. "You exaggerate again," Hinata whispered, whose concern was heard in her voice. "Take a break before you get exhausted." But Rita was just shaking her head. "No time. I'm about to uncover his secrets." These words reflected in the depths of your soul, revealing a profound truth that he could no longer ignore. The awareness struck her like lightning and electrified every fiber of her being. "This," she whispered to herself, her voice filled with a newly acquired determination, "is more important than anything else. I will not rest until I have brought the truth to light." Rita felt an infinite energy rising and was determined to achieve her goal. She knew that now she had no time for breaks but had to concentrate entirely on her mission. With a shaking of his head, Hinata observed Rita's tireless effort. She was sure that this would have consequences sooner or later. But Rita didn't listen to her warnings. So Hinata left nothing but to quietly watch over her girlfriend and hope that everything would turn out well. As Rita went deeper into her work, the Empire received disturbing news from the Latrasingo system. An ancient space dragon had appeared and had wiped out the local indigenous population. Now, the creature jealously guarded the planet and its treasures. The Senate was exceedingly indignant. "This greedy dragon is formally thrown on a seemingly inexhaustible mountain of resources," she exclaimed. "It is urgent that we regain the Latrasingo system immediately." While Kasach supervised the dragon, Paulina continued to fight with the First Space Fleet bravely against the universe's star bases. During prolonged sieges, she captured the enemy fortresses in the Raltri and Sun Takush systems. But the resistance was far from broken. In the vastness of the Raltri system, 3 colonial planets of the Uni stood like fortresses on which the troops of the fanatical Order of the Envoys of Fair had encamped and bitterly faced their enemies. In the remote Shireen sector, amid an implacable war, the brave General Nadine Heimer was commissioned by her mother to capture the seemingly invincible fortresses of the Raltri system. With her tested mobile army, an elite unit known for its unwavering determination, Nadine embarks on a dangerous mission that will affect the fate of the Shireen sector. The first planet they had besieged was Boakar, a fortress defended by enemy forces with an iron hand. But Nadine was not discouraged by the challenges. With strategic skill and a touch of luck, she managed to cut off the supply routes of the enemies, forcing them into a deadly clamp. Weeks passed, in which Nadine and her brave soldiers stood ready to take the decisive blow. The tension in the air was tangible as the moment of truth approached. The general knew that the success of her mission depended on that moment, on the determination and courage of her troops. Each soldier was motivated to the tip of his hair and ready to do his best. The general felt the responsibility on her shoulders, but she trusted her team and her skills. It was time to surprise the enemy and complete the mission successfully. The enemy forces fought fiercely, but Nadine's army succeeded. With this method, they crushed the defenders and freed the planet. Dead and wounded soldiers sealed the streets as Nadine's victory parade marched through the captured capital. The horrors of the war crushed her throat, but she seemed quiet. Your mission was not finished yet. And so the mobile army turned to its next target, the neighboring planet Kasach. A place surrounded and besieged by enemy lines. A place that held its breath while a fierce war of position broke out. But then, after endless days and nights of waiting, the breakthrough succeeded. The heroes of the mobile army fought with a determination that sought their equal and paid a high price for their freedom. But in the end, they triumphed and freed Kasach from the enemy's claws. Tired but not discouraged, Nadine led her army to her last bastion of resistance in the Reltri system, the planet Brangaki. Here the armed forces of the university made their bitterest resistance, but the relentless attackers could not be stopped. After weeks of bloodshed, Brangaki also suffered a relentless advance. Nadine accepted the surrender of the occupying forces. Her heart was heavy in the face of the senseless violence that had taken place in front of her eyes. But their duty to the Empire had priority. She could only pray that the nightmare of the war would soon come to an end. While Nadine fought for the colonies, Rita advanced research into zero-point energy. Days and nights passed as she plunged into complicated formulas and simulations. It was an endless source of frustration for them that using the mysterious energy was such a huge challenge. But Rita was a thick-headed person. She would not give up until she had unraveled all the secrets of zero-point energy. The temptation to use their potential for the Empire was too great. So Rita continued tirelessly, driven by scientific curiosity and ambition. Hinata whispered, discouraged as she made another futile attempt to prevent her girlfriend from staying in the lab. Hinata's words were reflected in Rita's ears, "You exaggerate again without measure. This cannot continue. You will still ruin your health." But Rita made her hand slip elegantly through the air as if she could wipe away the words that came up. "Work has priority," she replied with a narrow voice that reflected her determination. "We are on the brink of a breakthrough, I can formally feel it. So don't waste your time taking breaks and not telling me about it." With a shake of his head, Hinata observed her steadfast friend Rita. She would not rest until she either collapsed or reached her goal. That has always been her way. Hinata had no choice but to watch over her in silence and hope that her obsession would not lead her to destruction. In the frosty month of December, when the snow fell quietly on the soil of Kasach and the world plunged into a shimmering white, the incredible thing happened. Rita Griffin, a restless yet fearlessly dreaming scientist, finally achieved the desired breakthrough. In the depths of her mind, she had deciphered the basic principles of the mysterious zero-point energy, a force that had the potential to change the world as we knew it forever. With a heart full of excitement and a spirit burning with zeal, Rita presented her breakthrough discovery to the world. In the Senate chamber, filled with the essence of her tireless research, she explained to the audience the revolutionary possibilities of zero-point energy. She spoke of an unlimited energy supply, new technologies, and a sustainable future. People listened to their words and felt the promise of a new era of science and progress. She could hardly contain her enthusiasm when she exclaimed, "The energy production of the entire empire will be revolutionized. Thus we will enter the age of boundless power." Her words sounded through the room and kindled a fire in me. The possibilities seemed endless, and I could already imagine a future in which our empire would rule at the top, driven by an unstoppable force. The anticipation in the air was felt as if we were on the verge of a monumental change that would change the course of history forever. The Senate praised Rita in the highest tones for her masterpiece. But only Nadine, with a concerned look, seemed to hesitate. Such boundless creativity could be dangerous, she dared to insist. Should we deal with it with extreme caution? Rita, however, shook her head and disagreed. "You are afraid of progress, as always," she blasphemed. "We must not miss this opportunity." Nadine whispered and remained silent. Nobody wanted to hear her concerns. Her heart flattened with fear as she watched Rita, her dear friend, in unstoppable euphoria. Deep inside, she could only pray that Rita's success would not lead her on a dangerous path. While Rita sunset in the glory of her triumph, Saint General Nadine finds herself trapped in an implacable war that puts her under constant stress. Exhausted and plagued by growing doubts, she led the mobile army from planet to planet, penetrating deeper and deeper into enemy territory. The battles were cruel, shocking the losses, but Nadine continued to fight with unwavering determination. She was not allowed to show weakness, for the fate of the Empire rested on her shoulders. With a heavy heart and a deep feeling of disgust, Nadine swallowed down her grief and disgust and continued with her duty. As the year approached its end, she was overwhelmed by a wave of relief when she received the news that the university's last bastion in the Realtry system had failed. The colonies were finally liberated. Nadine surrendered to Brangaki with a hard stone meadow. Deep inside, she longed to leave behind the horrors of war. But the university was not yet defeated. Day after day, Nadine fought, hoping the end would come soon. Savia, exhausted by the ruthless bloodshed, had reached her load limit. In a Senate speech that was to go into history, she passionately advocated the peace of the Shireen sector. Enough suffering has already been done, she emphasized in a determined voice. We must not allow further atrocities to be committed by the fanatical zeal of the university. She was approved in the Senate. We will not show weakness, cried Kate Brock passionately. Kasach also shook his head in agreement. The uni must be subjugated, she declared with fierce determination. With a heavy heart, the divine Empress Savia lowered her head. The cry for peace was silent. All she could do was hope in silence that reason would prevail. The alternative was too terrible to consider. In the midst of this dark atmosphere, good news came at the end of December. The uni troops had finally been driven out of the Realtry system. Nadine had fulfilled her mission with iron discipline. In the Senate, Kasach and Kate Brock shouted cheerfully, "A great victory." Even Savia managed a thin smile. At least this slaughter was behind them. Maybe, just maybe, healing could start for them all. There was still a glow of hope for a peaceful future. The year was coming to an end, and with it came the confusion of feelings. A constant up and down, a dance between progress and war, jubilation and suffering, had sealed the destiny of the empire. But the will to move forward remained unwavering even amid all these adversities, which swept over the country like a stormy wind. A new year, an untold chapter full of possibilities, was ahead of Kasach. In the people's hearts sprang the hope that this year would bring more light than shadow. Hey, I would be happy if you could give my video a like, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date.